Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and PCS season is upon us. We are moving around as military families, trying to find that new home and get our family situated wherever the military has sent us. And that is part of the reason why I am super excited to share today's guest with you. He is a veteran himself and decided to build a company all around helping military families find that next home. It's called VeteranPCS, and he's going to talk to us about the tips and tricks of finding your VA loan, getting it situated, and doing what's best for your family. So join me for that today. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. So just to get quickly started on this week's episode, I want to give a shout out to all of the families who have lost loved ones in the floods in Texas, and also a big thank you and a level of appreciation and respect for all of the first responders who are assisting, whether they are military or civilian, or if they're even from other countries. That is just an amazing show of support and love to see, and the outpouring of kindness and assistance is what America's about, and that's why we serve. They're service members on the ground saving lives and helping families, and that is part of why we serve. So we're going to get into this week's episode and talk about when we serve and are sent other places by the military and have to relocate our families. How do we navigate that in a way that is effective for our families? And there is a wonderful organization called VeteranPCS, and the owner is going to be with us today. He is going to introduce himself in just a second and tell us all about how to manage our veteran loans so that we can get the best home for our families.
Okay, Jason, will you explain your business, what you do in regards to VA loans to everyone?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Sam, for having me on the show here. I was Army from 2012 to 2020. Moved kind of all over the world. I think I moved 9 times in 8 years, which was awesome. I mean, I enjoyed moving because it was just me, at the time. I married my wife Emily, and I just have a 1 month old now. So moving now seems horrible. But once I transitioned out, I ended up getting my real estate license, really for fun. I just thought I'd try it out. Didn't really know what I was going to do after the military. And shortly after, I started wondering if I thought there's got to be some sort of website that just has veterans and military spouses that are real estate agents or, experts in the VA loan, because I never heard of anything. And I couldn't find anything. So I just decided to start this website that just simply features veterans and military spouses that are real estate agents all over the country, as well as mortgage lenders that specialize in the VA loan who are also veterans or military spouses. So they're from a variety of different companies. It's free for the agents to be on there, so it helps to support their businesses as military spouses and as veterans. And then part of the commission that they make on the home sale goes back to the military family at closing. So they get
Oh,
some money.
awesome.
Yeah, we send out these big giant checks. So if you see it on our website, it's veteranpcs.com. We send out these big checks for every closing. And yeah, part of the commission check goes back to the military clients as like a kind of a money back, thing, military bonus. And then they send part of the commission to us, and that's how we run the whole program. Um, so yeah, that started in 2021, just on a nationwide basis, and it's grown a lot. We've got almost 400 agents and lenders on the website, pretty much all 50 states, and we've given back, I think, probably over 350,000 so far in like bonuses to military people when they buy a house or sell a house. So yeah, so we see a lot of VA loans. We see a lot of military people moving, PCSing. Doesn't matter if they're active or if they're prior military, but that's really the niche, is it's just people that you can trust that have been in your shoes. They know what it's like, and they'll shoot you straight.
That's awesome. I really love that it's people who've already kind of been there and understand it because the military community, we do have very different needs sometimes in regards to housing. And we also have a really tight window. We've got to find something quickly because we do move quickly and we need to also sell quickly. So it's great when you can have someone who understands those pressures. That's awesome. So part of the reason why you contacted me is I had reached out and threw it out to my listeners that I was looking for someone who could explain VA loans better because I had some listeners with questions. Would you be able to go through the process and kind of explain it to someone who's never done it before and doesn't know what to do or even much about the how it works?
The VA loan, it's a loan program. It's guaranteed by the government, so it's a government-backed loan. And there's a few other varieties. So there, if you hear of FHA loans, USDA loan, there's a different kinds of government-backed loans. The VA loan is a special one that's tailored to the military community, whether you're active duty or you're prior service or veteran. You have access to use the VA loan, and it's designed to help service members, their families, veterans get into home ownership without having to save up this massive chunk of money as a down payment. So, like a conventional loan, a lot of people hear 20% down.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if house prices are, three, 400, 500,000, you're talking
Yeah.
60 to $100,000 down, let alone closing costs and moving costs and all the other things. So, yeah, so zero money down is the big benefit. And for active duty folks, your housing allowance is tax-free money. And not
Yeah.
a lot of people maybe understand that, when you're paying rent or living on base or something, this tax-free allowance that you're getting oftentimes goes towards building somebody else's asset, right? Or paying down their principal balance or building their equity rather than your own. So I wish I would have known a lot more about the VA loan when I got into the military. I didn't purchase my first house until I got out in 2020. And now looking back, I mean, I ran the numbers. If I bought a house at Fort Bragg when I was there, and then bought one when I got out here to Fort Carson, I think I would have had like 250 or $300,000 in equity after about like 10 years. Now that's with like the COVID boom and all that stuff. But it can be really useful to start building this, real estate portfolio or kind of use some of the benefits with real estate as your active duty or even when you're out. There's just a lot that people misunderstand about the VA loan. Some of those things, the VA loan doesn't come from the VA. It's backed by, the VA and the government and everything like that. But there's thousands of mortgage companies that will, do VA loans. Not everybody is specialized in them, and they're all different. So, one company may, quote you a 7% interest rate for, your VA loan, whereas there may be a different mortgage lender that can get you the same exact thing, but at 6.5% or 6.25% or, even 6%. I mean, there's some that are way higher than others. And if you don't know that, I mean, that could be the difference of like $200 or $300 a month in,
Yeah.
in interest, let alone closing fees. There's some fees, it's called a loan origination fee that the VA allows, up to 1%. All the lenders on Veteran PCS do not charge this additional loan origination fee.
Okay.
So, I saw one where I was representing the seller here in Colorado, and the buyer was military and had, their own real estate agent, their own lender and stuff. But the lending company that they used, they got overcharged like $9,000.
Oh my
Whereas if they
goodness.
would have used like a veteran PCS lender, they wouldn't have had, you know, any of those additional closing fees.
That
Um,
was something my husband ran into when we were looking for ours and when we were at Campbell in Kentucky. He had thought that all VA people who did VA loans were the same. And he found
Yeah.
out one guy, and I wonder if he was one of yours, was drastically cheaper because he wasn't doing those extra fees. So, yeah, that's an important thing to ask and find out.
Yeah, and it's not only about rate. A lot of people shop just for the rate, but there's also fees. So that's where like the APR, if you see that, that's kind of the cumulative kind of total of the loan interest rate plus the cost of the fees. Um, but figuring out, when you do a loan application, you'll get a loan estimate, and that's kind of what it boils down to of like, okay, here's all your, estimated closing fees and the lender closing fees. And it can be tough to decipher, but that's again kind of why Veteran PCS exists is, we can walk you through it, or you don't really have to stress too much about that because, the ones on here have been interviewed and we've hand selected them. So the VA, you can use it multiple times. That's another kind of common misconception. You can even have more than one home on your VA loan benefit at one time.
Okay. I did
So
not know that.
yeah, so we
Is
have
there,
we have two houses on, my first house is on the VA loan, and then my wife and I bought this new house and is also with the VA loan benefit.
I vaguely remember when we did ours, though, that you have to live a certain amount of time in or have it before you can go get the other one. Is there a time thing?
Right. Yeah, there are. There's a lot of different rules. Um, it all boils down to the VA loan is really there for your primary residence.
Okay.
That's kind of the underlying mission behind it, where a lot of these rules and stuff come from, is that it's not designed to just let you go out and buy as many houses as you want, because obviously, people could get way over their head and they could get into
Yeah.
financial distress and um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really designed for your personal residence. But if you want to, if you need to buy another house and you want to keep the first one, there just has to be typically some sort of reason. So even
Okay.
if, um, you're living in one house and let's say somebody's getting deployed or going to Korea for a year and their family's moving back home and then they're going to get out and join them or something like that. Like their spouse can occupy that residence before they do and meet the occupancy requirements. Or
Okay.
let's say if you're in a small house and you want to upgrade, it's like, okay, well, that's, oftentimes reason enough. So yeah, it's not super clear cut on a lot of the rules, but it sort of comes down to intent, which
Okay.
your intentions are, and does it kind of pass the test from the VA of like, okay, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah, okay. That's logical. Yeah, because they don't want people using it to flip houses and stuff. That's not the purpose of this.
Yeah, not in rapid succession, but
Yeah.
you most certainly, and I think that's probably the best strategy, while you're in the military is, you move to a location, you buy a house with a VA loan, something that you can live in and improve during your
Hmm.
time. So that's the big differentiator with real estate is we see, I'm in houses all the time in Colorado Springs that somebody buys zero money down and maybe they get all their closing costs covered or, whatever it is, but then they don't really take care of the house. And then after
Yeah.
3 years, it's like it's really been kind of beat up. They haven't really maintained it. They haven't taken care of the HVAC systems or plumbing or the yard or, even just the floorboards and it's really dirty and that house loses value, and then they go to try to sell it after a few years and it's not selling for even what they bought it for or something like that. So, you can, that's probably the best strategy, I guess, is find something where you can add some value to it so that if you do sell it after 3 years or something, you have obviously a much better chance at profiting, from that sale, depending on the market, obviously. But um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you can for that, but you can't just buy a house, never live in it, fix it up, and sell it. That would
Yeah.
raise some red flags.
Yeah, that would defeat the whole purpose of this
Right.
process and system. So for let's say someone new to the military who is still trying to figure out all of this stuff, do you have any recommendations for them when they're going out to look for a house? And um, are there just anything specifically they should be looking for or paying attention
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that there is a VA inspection, uh, and that's not true. There's no VA home inspection. You should always get a home inspection, but they're just, it's just a private home inspection, and it's really just to you. The VA never really gets that. The VA does do an appraisal. And
Okay.
that's the appraiser is trained, they have to pick out safety and hazard things like if there's a back deck that's falling down or there's broken windows or there's chipping paint and, no hand railings and there's a large drop off, or, just simple kind of safety and hazard things. Um, so, there's not, I mean, those are pretty obvious, big things that anybody just wouldn't want in their house to begin with. But in this market specifically, looking for something that, is the lowest principal balance that you can get is kind of my recommendation. There's a lot of folks right now. New homes is a great option. I mean, we did a new house, but we're planning on living here for, I mean, forever.
Yeah.
Um, the danger that I've seen a lot of short sales and foreclosures and stuff like that come up is because, people buy a new house that's inflated in the price because the lender is buying down the interest rate. So they see these deals of, 3.99% fixed interest rate. We can get your payment down to your BAH of, $2,200 or whatever it is. It sounds great, but typically the house price plus any VA funding fee. You're always going to have a VA funding fee unless you have a Purple Heart or unless you're, a veteran with like disability. But that VA funding fee increases your loan balance. So if you buy a house for 300,000 and you roll in the VA funding fee, your actual loan balance might be, 306,000 or 307,000 or something like that. So when you're paying off your monthly payment, all whatever $2,000 isn't going towards,
Yeah.
lowering that amount. It's only a small percentage is actually lowering your principal balance. So a lot of times
Yeah.
after years, people have only basically paid down the VA funding fee basically to the point of where they bought the house at, and then they go to try to sell it. Maybe you can get the same price for what you bought it for, but then if you have agent commissions, you've got taxes, you've got, all
Yeah.
these things, that's when, people really get into a tight spot because they're like, well, I can't afford to lose,
That's
$10,000.
That's literally what happened to us. That's a mistake we made. And we thought we were going to be in our house because the army had told us, don't ever trust the military. They don't know what they're talking
Right.
about. They said, oh, well, you'll be there for another 3 years, 4 years. And so we bought the house and we were only there for 2 years. And so we hadn't put enough towards the principal so that by the time we went to go sell, we ended up having to pay $5,000 to sell our house.
Right.
And yeah, that was a nightmare for us.
Yeah. So I guess my biggest recommendation is if somebody's stationed somewhere where, they're living on base or they're renting or something like that now, do whatever you can, I guess, to start trying to save money in preparation for buying a house. Um, because you may have zero money down with the VA loan, but you still have closing costs.
Hmm.
And a rough estimate, it's a fairly conservative amount. I mean, every state is different with property taxes and stuff, but if you have about 2% of whatever the home prices are, so if you're moving to an area where it's, $400,000 houses, you probably want, $8,000 to $10,000 saved up just for that home purchase. And work with a real estate agent and so to negotiate that the seller is paying your closing costs and you're doing no money down. So you're, generally zero money out of pocket at all, but uh, market conditions change and stuff. So having some money saved up and then continuing to save money, as you're living in it, or trying to get the lowest principal balance that you can, um, and not just taking the lowest interest rate, especially from like a new build or if somebody's offering a 2-1 buy down or something. I mean, that's like probably $8,000 or $9,000 a lot of times that if you can just take that off the principal balance of the house price, it puts you in a much better position down the road if you're going to refinance that loan or if you're going to try to rent the house out, if you're going to sell the house, anything like that. So,
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, we didn't realize that we were going to have to turn around and leave as quickly as we did. And once we got wind that that might happen, we started trying to put more money towards the principal and all these other things, but it was almost a little too late.
right.
So that's really great advice for people to be able to have that money up ahead of time so they're not adding extra fees and more of their monthly payment can go to the principal and whatever else they need to. So thank you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that's some really great starting information for everyone. Um, it right now interest rates are insane and the market is crazy. But military families have to move anyway because
Right.
that's just the nature of being in the military. Um, is there any specific besides that, anything that you would say if you were having to still move around and move quickly? Any recommendations just to wrap it
Yeah.
up?
I mean, aside from just saving and then starting early, as best you can, even if you don't know where you're going yet, you can at least start the VA loan discussion early. Because
Okay.
that matter, that's kind of location immaterial. The VA loan you can use anywhere. So, starting to talk the VA loan and maybe some of the areas where you think you might be going, looking at your credit score and your income. Because if your spouse has, a W-2 job where you're currently at, and you think you make that wouldn't be considered unless it was like remote or something where you're going next. Your
Yeah.
spouse would have to have employment, wherever you're going next, if you want to use that type of employment. And then um, the type as well, 1099 versus W-2 and hourly, if there's bonuses, there's a lot that goes into income. So it's really good to start early to just kind of
Figure
get
out
it
what,
together,
yeah,
you
what
know.
you can afford. And also reminded me of something. There's a minimum credit score for a VA loan, right?
There's not.
There's not. Okay, I
No,
thought there
there's
was.
no, yeah, the VA has no minimum credit score. There are lenders that have company policies called
Okay.
overlays, where they say, oh, well, we're not going to do any loans below 620.
Okay.
But the VA does not have any minimum credit score. So there are a lot of lenders, again, the lenders on Veteran PCS and stuff, they can go below, in the high 500s, mid 500. I mean, we've seen a lot. Um, So, that's one thing. I mean, some other strategies, when it was just me, I bought this house and I bought kind of a bigger house that I still qualified for. But then I rented out rooms in it. That's called house hacking. Um,
Yeah.
if that's an option, that's a great way to buy a single family home. You live in the top floor or something, and then if you have a room or two in the basement, you can rent out a couple of rooms and you can cut that mortgage down by, half or more. Um, that helps a lot. You can buy multifamily property. So a lot of people will buy duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes um, with a VA loan. And those are oftentimes a lot
Okay.
more expensive, but the qualification is a lot different. You're not qualifying for the entire purchase price. You're qualifying for the monthly payment that you would be responsible for with the other rents for the other units considered.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
the
that.
monthly payment is like $8,000 a month or something. but each unit is going to be, $2,000 a month income,
Oh.
and it's a fourplex. You have to qualify for like that $2,000 a month, but you don't have to qualify for the entire 8,000. Now,
Oh,
you would want much more in savings, you know,
yeah.
if when there's turnover and when there's, somebody doesn't pay, their share or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. You have to have a bigger buffer. But you can buy a multifamily property. You can do a VA loan assumption. That typically also requires more savings. So if somebody's been really diligent, they've got, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 or something like that saved up, you can actually assume another veteran's VA loan at their interest rate.
Really?
This is like the
I had
biggest
no idea.
thing, that a lot of people don't understand. But we're in this very unique time where there's people that purchased houses at 2.25%, two and a half,
Yeah.
3%, and maybe the house is only appreciated by, 20 or $30,000. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have that money to pay that gap, what you're doing is whatever the purchase price is, the appraised value or the market value of the house, and what their loan balance is. If it's a $370,000 is the loan balance, but the purchase price is that's like what the house is going to sell for is 400,000, and that's what the deal, is structured around. You'd have to pay that
The
$30,000
middle gap.
down
Yeah.
payment. So
But you'd get the better rate, which is so like unbelievably good right now. That would
right.
I had no idea. That's
Yeah.
thank you so much. That's the kind of information that I was hoping to find for people is things that I would not even be able to begin to guess because I'm not in this field. I'm not working with this stuff on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. So but they do take a lot longer. They can take 60, 90 days to close. So you have to start even earlier for
Hmm.
those. There are closing costs on top of that amount. Again, there's all kinds of ways that you can structure a real estate deal,
Yeah.
but that's a really, really, I mean, the difference in payment, a $400,000 house with a 2.5% interest rate is probably around 2,100 bucks a month, 2,200 bucks a month, whereas a $400,000 house with a 6.5% interest rate is like $3,200 a month or
Okay.
3,000, something like that. So I mean, just in interest, I mean that's like $800,
Yeah, that's a huge
thousand
deal.
bucks just in interest that you're paying, which doesn't go towards your, I mean, it doesn't go, it goes to the bank, so
So it
that's
might
it's
be
huge.
worthwhile to get onto some of these spouses pages and see if people are PCSing and they have a VA loan that you can assume because they're selling
Right.
or if you're ETSing and you've got a little bit more time, wiggle room, you don't
Right.
have to get in someplace as quickly. That's really great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
That's
I
a
would
huge
still,
insight.
even in those cases, I mean, we've seen some, I mean, I'm biased, I guess, towards real estate because I've seen a lot of nightmares in the
Yeah.
real estate industry, so even if you're going to do an assumption, I would still recommend, talking with a real estate agent to help you through
Oh
it.
yeah.
Because, I mean, out here, a common example, right, is like if you don't know to do a sewer line inspection and you have no idea
Mm-hmm.
that you also own and are responsible for your sewer line from your house to the city tap. I mean, there was a house um, that we just closed here. I was with the buyers, and we were obviously lucky that we found this issue with the sewer line, but the seller had to pay like $23,000 to fix the sewer line. And if you don't know those things and you're just like, I don't want to work with a real estate agent, and you know, there's probably a lot of times where you might not need to, right? And it's a simple deal and there is nothing crazy about it. But this was a newer house. This house was like 5 years old. So, you wouldn't anticipate that it would have issues, but lo and behold, sewer line belly in there and it cost them $23,000 to repair,
Yeah.
which is obviously, you know, way more than what the real estate agent makes. Um, So, so it's still worth it to, have that professional guidance and people that can kind of walk you through that to make sure that, you're not assuming a great loan, but maybe a bad house,
A,
a
yeah,
house
a
that has
dud
foundation
property.
issues and no one discloses it, or there's just there's just some stuff out there. So, um,
We learned that with our one experience. We're grateful we had the real estate agent we did because she protected us from some things, but there were other things that were shady that still slipped through. But yeah, making sure you get termite inspections, foundation inspections, all of those things are really important. And that's not up to your VA loan person. Hopefully your real estate agent says something, but do those yourself, people.
yeah, so there's a lot. And when it comes to buying a second house with a VA loan, that's where you get into limits, which, you have no limit when you have full VA loan entitlement. So if you're buying, it doesn't even have to be your first time. If you've bought a house, sold that house, you've got full entitlement with the VA loan. You're not limited on purchase price. You can buy a $3 million house if you want, if
Hmm.
you can qualify for it. But
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
right, yeah, when it comes to your second house, if you already have one, that's where you get into these county loan limits. You can go
Okay.
above the county loan limit, but you have to put 25% down of however much it is above that county loan limit. So it's fairly easy to figure out, but um, yeah, it's worth, having those discussions early, talking with a good mortgage lender, veteran PCS real estate agents, is again who I'm biased towards, but um, to kind of help strategize with you and figure out what would work, for your situation.
Thank you. That is wonderful. And I really appreciate all the advice and information you've been able to share. Um, it's veteranpcs.com, right?
Yep.
And you guys are on Facebook or where
Yeah. Yeah. Everywhere. Just at veteran PCS,
at
Instagram,
Veteran
Facebook. Yep. The website is great. There's a home buyer's guide on there on our resources page. It's huge. It's like 50 or 80 pages or something.
Wow.
Took me forever, but it's got like all kinds of stuff in it. Um, so yeah, find us. You can message us. We're real people. Our phone number on there, like we answer it. There's no, uh, you don't have to press one. You don't have to
Oh,
wait,
nice.
and listen to a weird tone or, it's just, yeah, it's us.
Oh, that's
The whole
awesome.
team is veterans and military spouses that, we run the whole thing, and um, we'll get you set up with people that can help you out. So yeah, look us
Oh,
up, send us a message on social media or through the website, or even I'll give you my email, or info at veteranpcs is kind of the easy one, veteranpcs.com, for any email questions. I check that one every day. So it's
okay.
probably it's
Make
most
sure you get me all of that you'd like, and I can put it in the description for the episode. So everybody who's listening to this, go check the description and it'll all be there so that you can contact them and get the help that you need. I'm really grateful you put together this organization that understands the needs of the military community. And thank you for your service as well. And for, yeah, seeing a need and filling it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. It was a pleasure being on the show.
Well, it was wonderful having you. Take care.
Thanks.
I greatly appreciate Jason and his entire veteran PCS team for the help that they have given me in regards to gathering all this information that listeners wanted for veterans loans, and just hopefully that answered the questions you have. If you have any other questions regarding military life, please feel free to contact me and I will find the best resources I can to help answer those questions for you, whether it's an expert or just a researching myself. As well as if you are a veteran and or military spouse or someone who is involved in the veteran community and would like to share your story, what you're working on and what you've been through. I am still working on my Veterans History Project in conjunction with the Library of Congress, trying to record the stories of every veteran because everyone's voices matter and everyone has a story. So please like, share, subscribe, click it. Let's stick it to the algorithm because that's really how we get this information out to as many people as possible, and comment below as well. Please get this information, share it with your friends, let people know so that they have the opportunity to share their story, what projects they're working on, and we can continue to build the support structure for the military community. As always, let's be the good that we want to see in the world. And I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.